Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter. Welcome to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. Actually, we're not doing top 10. We are going to be in uncharted territory. We're going to be taking a look at the top 25 moments. And today, the Cutter Top 25, as it is Canada Day, July the 1st, it is time to break this bad boy out. It is the top 25 Canadian moments in sports history. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat in this list. You'll notice there are going to be talks about the three major teams. Well, the teams of the Raptors, the um, Blue Jays, and of course hockey in the NHL. Of course, not all of those teams are fully Canadian and all that. I know the Blue Jays in '93 had a few Canadians. One was Rob Butler, if I remember correctly, right? And then and then Rob Ducey. And it's primarily American, like the Toronto Raptors. But let's not forget this. So I made the one per list of the sports teams and all that. There were some good moments. Anyway, some of course the one per team rule is that Vince Carter's slam dunk competition in 2000, Jose Batista's bat flip in 2015 are not on this list because there was a better Raptor and Blue Jay moment. You'll understand. Now, of course, I'm going to be doing fingers the different way because everyone knows that, when I do this, of course, it's not time. So, what I'm going to do is this and this. That, of course, means 25. So, this is the tens and this is the digits. So, it's 25, 24, 23. And then when it turns to 19, it'll be like this. And then try to make a 9. Then an 8. Then a 7 onwards. And then, of course, 10, 9, 8. All that. Okay? So, let's begin with number 20. Oopsies. We have number 25 on this list. Chantal Petitclerc's Paralympic Olympic journey. Chantal Petitclerc is one of the best wheelchair athletes in not just Canadian history, but the world. She put up 5 gold medals at Beijing 2008. It was amazing to see. And she ran for some kind of office and won. And she was a legend and all that. I actually know a Paralympian myself. Uh, I don't think any of you heard about Chrissy Campbell, but she used to be part of that open space group I used to go to every Mondays for like, 9 years? Anyhow, she went to the Olympics and she almost won a medal at one of the events. She just missed by 600 of a second. I wanted to let you know. Number 24 is the dual threat of Clara Hughes. Clara Hughes to Canadians is basically the girl that does the Bell Let's Talk stuff about mental health. But Clara Hughes was an icon in both cycling and speed skating. She actually was a cyclist first, winning a few bronze medals, and then she turned to speed skating, saying that it had the same mindset as cycling. And you kind of do if you're using your legs and your stamina. So Clara Hughes got to be a good person and all that, and winning medals in both cycling and speed skating are amazing to do that in 2 Olympics. Number 23 is Penny Oleksiak at 16 in Rio 2016. So Penny Oleksiak is a great swimmer and all that. Everyone knows that. Her brother Jamie used to play hockey for the Dallas Stars. But Penny was just amazing. At age 16, which is the Olympic rule that no athlete under 16 can compete in the Olympics, she came through with 4 medals at Rio 2016. Of course, that games was known for the bad water and the Zika virus, unfortunately. But yeah, Oleksiak did well. She actually tied for gold in the 100-meter freestyle. She tied her American rival right on the nose, 0.00 seconds. And since they only used 2 decimal places in the Olympics, Oleksiak tied for gold. But still, 4 medals was good. She had a decent Tokyo 2021. She had a decent Paris 2024, and she's now serving as 2-year suspension for some kind of substance problem. Not the substance problem you think, but taking a bad substance, which is on the Olympic doping thing. But she'll be back in time for Los Angeles. Number 22 is Nancy Green winning gold in 1968. So Nancy Green was a great skier and all that, winning World Cup events. And then in Grenoble, in the French Alps, as Andre the Giant's thing happened, she actually won the giant slalom. If I remember correctly, it's a very long course, and you have to go through flags weaving in and out, in and out, in and out. But yeah, Nancy Green took gold in 1968, giving British Columbia something to cheer for. What's even more impressive was that one of her neighbors, Karen Lee Gardner, well, one of her future neighbors, Karen Lee Gardner, won downhill in 1992 in France, in Abbeville. So that was pretty good. Number 21 is Andre de Grasse, winning the Olympics 200 meters in 2020. Andre de Grasse was basically the next best thing. He was iconic. He looked good for Canada. Unfortunately, he always had the block of being behind Usain Bolt. He did take silver at the 200 meters behind Bolt in 2016. And then, of course, Bolt retired, gave Andre de Grasse the symbolism that he's going to be good. And so de Grasse at Tokyo 2020, well, 2021, because of the whole COVID crapola, put on a clinic and won Olympic 200 meters gold, become the first guy since Donovan Bailey. And yes, we'll get to him. I think he's on my list. He better be on my list. Yep, he's on my list. And all that. So yeah, Andre de Grasse winning a gold medal. That's still pretty good by me. Number 20, and that's a zero, of course. Number 20 is Norvin Dancer winning the Kentucky Derby, 1964. You'd be thinking, horse racing, Cutter. What the fuck are you thinking? Although you can also say with horse racing, Ron Turcotte getting secretary at the Triple Crown in 1973 because of the fact that Ron Turcotte was Canadian and all that. But yeah, a Canadian horse winning a Triple Crown event, that's hard pressed. But yeah, Norvin Dancer in 1964 was a racing legend, and he actually partially sired Secretariat, like all that. That which was huge. It was big. Yeah, Norvin Dancer didn't win the other two Triple Crown events, but hey, you know what? Norvin Dancer did his job in 1964. That's impressive. And you know, Ron Turcotte upon Secretariat, and that they 31 lengths win at Belmont. Okay, number 19 is Fergie Jenkins and his career. Fergie Jenkins was a pretty impressive competitor for baseball. He was a Philadelphia Philly once, and then traded to the Cubs, and then with the Cubs, even though that they were lovable losers in a sense and just couldn't win the big one, they lost the 69 NL East by a black cat and the New York Mets. Fergie put on a great Hall of Fame career. He won the 1971 Cy Young Award for Best Pitcher in the National League. He was pretty good. He was strong workhorse for the Cubs, and then he went to Texas and a few other teams after that. And in 1991, the Baseball Hall of Fame made him a Hall of Famer, which was shocking because the Canadian and the Hall of Fame was basically a needle in a haystack. Of course, this is 1991. Not a lot of Canadians were in Major League Baseball, unlike today, 2026. But Fergie Jenkins made the Hall of Fame, and that's all that matters. Okay, number 18 is Tom Longboat in winning the Boston Marathon in 1907. Tom Longboat was a legend. He was legendary marathon runner from the Six Nations. He was native, indigenous, whatever way to call it. But Tom Longboat was iconic. He could have easily won a few Olympic medals, but he just had bad luck and all that. However, in 1907, he won the famous Boston Marathon. And of course, newspapers were all the rage. Radio was not really there. TV wasn't there. Yeah, you had to look at the newspapers for his great victory and doing the telegraph. But yeah, Tom Longboat proved that Native athletes could do well and all that. He kind of set the bar for Jim Thorpe, if you will. Number 17 is Canada winning the Olympic gold medal in 2002. Canada had a 50-year itch they had to scratch. In 1952 in Oslo, they won the gold medal for hockey. Of course, that was when amateurs played. And then Canada went on a bad losing streak, mostly because of the Russians, because Russia was getting into the Olympics and their hockey teams were pure amazing. Canada did win, I think it was bronze in 1960, was it? Or was it silver? Silver or bronze in 1960 because the Americans won it. But yeah, they beat the Czechs and Russians. Canada couldn't believe it. And then in 1972, they did they get it out of the Olympics? I can't remember. But anyway, yeah. Canada kept chasing and chasing and chasing. And then they were close in 1992, losing to the unified team, aka the Soviets. And then in 94, they lost to Peter Forsberg's stamped goal. And then 98, when the first time the Olympic athletes could be professionals, Canada fell to the Czechs in the semifinals. 2002, they had no excuses. They were in Salt Lake City. They were on American turf. They knew the ice and all that. Canada shockingly lost to the Swedes. Switched goalies from Cujo to Martin Brodeur. Pulled off some magic. Gretzky accusing everyone of being happy that Canada is failing. And then Canada went on a run and helped by Belarus beating Sweden in the quarterfinals. Canada easily beat Belarus, made the finals against the Americans. I picked the U.S. to beat the Russians. I mean, after all, Canada-U.S. would be great. And it was. Canada winning 5-2, Joe second with a pair of goals, and finally the drought was over. Number 16 is Jacques Villeneuve winning the F1 World Championship. I know a lot of people said it should be higher and all that. I would say that too, but yeah, F1, a little bias, F1 bias. But Jacques Villeneuve winning in 1987 was amazing. I used to try to sneak watch, well, I used to watch his races in French on CBC's French affiliate and all that, and would sneak to watch the Formula One races in '97. Anyway, Jacques Villeneuve was amazing and all that. '96, when he came from IndyCar after winning the '95 Indy 500, he went to F1. He almost won the championship. He took second, and then in '97, as a sophomore, he did win the championship. Of course, Michael Schumacher was trying to ruin Jacques Villeneuve. Final race, the European Grand Prix, when Schumi trying to make a move and knock Villeneuve out of the race. Unfortunately, Schumi hit supposedly the wrong side of the car and he busted himself. Villeneuve ended up winning the race. It was amazing. I mean, Gilles Villeneuve, his father, could have been an F1 world champion, but he failed. But Jacques did it, and Michael Schumacher had to serve a massive European driving blitz sentence to stay in Formula One in 1998, and he was disqualified for the year. But yeah, JV did the job. Of course, Larry Walker was named NL MVP in '97, lost the Canadian Athlete of the Year to Jacques Villeneuve, and basically said he lost to a machine. Although he wasn't as butthurt as some people thought he was. Number 15 is George Chuvalo facing Muhammad Ali in 1966. George Chuvalo was a great boxer for a heavyweight in the world when he fought in the 60s and 70s. Muhammad Ali in 1966 decided to challenge Chuvalo, as Ali's world title was up for grabs. And yes, he was named Muhammad Ali. He made the convert to Islam. So Maple Leaf Gardens hosted this massive matchup, 15 rounds. Ali and Chuvalo went toe-to-toe. Ali won by decision. Chuvalo never tasted the canvas. In fact, Chuvalo never tasted the canvas in his career. He kept losing, but those was by decision. Yeah, those were by decisions. I know that, yeah. Ali would face Chuvalo once more in Vancouver to admiration. But yeah, Chuvalo proved to Muhammad Ali he was still there. And he had to like it. Number 14 is Schmirler the Curler, 1998. So Sandra Schmirler was a 3-time Canadian champion curler, and she was good. And then that's when Canada needed some help with Olympic curling. Curling was basically a demonstration sport and then in 1998 it was a full medal sport. So Schmirler winning a very high intense Olympic curling trials victory. I can't remember who it was. I would say Kelly Law, but no. But Schmirler made it in, and she basically was just fantastic in 1998. giving Canada gold for women's curling. The men's team sucked, and Schmirler was a legend. But unfortunately, Schmirler ended up having cancer, and by 2001, she was dead, unfortunately. But yeah, curling, our sport, it should have been big. Number 13 is Hayley Wickenheiser's career, or you can also say Marie-Philippe Poulin. So, anyhow, Hayley Wickenheiser and Marie-Philippe Poulin are two legendary Olympic players with their scoring intensity and longevity. Wickenheiser lasted a while since the first Olympics hockey tournament for women in 1998. Lasting, I think, till 2010. I think she retired after the 2010 victory. Whereas Marie-Philippe Poulin was on the 2010 team as a young pup and then put up her longevity, including winning the gold medal for Canada against the U.S. in overtime in 2014. Fun fact: every women's hockey final has had Canada in it, and all but one has had the Americans with them. But anyway, yeah, it was just amazing, and those two are legends. Number 12, excuse my fingers. Number 12 is Steve Nash winning MVP awards back-to-back years, 05 and 06. It's amazing because Canadian basketball back before Steve Nash was not really that big. You had Mike Gminski playing. You also had Bill Wennington, Mike Schmerak, Rick Fox. Yeah, you didn't really have Canadian representation in the 90s. But Steve Nash, when he was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, traded to Phoenix, back to Dallas, and then to Phoenix, was an icon for Canadian basketball. Playing for Santa Clara and then helping everyone out. Nash was the face of Canadian basketball excellence. And all that, carrying a nation on his back. I believe the 2005 MVP was unwarranted, and 2006 was, but I don't know. One of his two. It's controversial. Steve Nash kind of made his point for MVP at the slam dunk competition when he helped his Phoenix teammate, Amari Stoudemire, win the 2005 crown. Steve Nash performed a shot well. Stoudemire would hit it off the backboard, head it to Nash, and Nash, like a soccer player, would head it upwards and give Amari time to dunk it. And of course, the TNT crew went nuts saying, Steve Nash for MVP, Steve Nash MVP. And he was. Number 11 is Canada winning the Olympic women's gold medal in soccer at Tokyo. Canada's women's team were decent and all that. They weren't the powerhouse like the US or even China or Japan. But Canada kept plugging away. In 2012, Canada got bit in a semifinal against the Americans. It was a tight one. They only lost 4-3, but unfortunately, a Norwegian referee, who shall go nameless because I don't know, I forgot her name, made a couple stupid moves and ruined Canada, including calling a 5-second count on the goalie for not playing the ball. Canada ended up winning bronze, and then 2016 Canada won bronze after the Americans went out early. And then at Tokyo 2020, Canada beat the Americans in, I believe, the quarterfinals, and then won the semis, and they would take on Sweden for Olympic gold. Now, of course, the match at Tokyo 2020 was actually moved because of the searing heat, so they had to play it at night, Tokyo time, which meant it was daytime in Canada. So, fortunately, though, on a Friday morning at 10 o'clock, I was working in the warehouse, and I got to see the game and all that. But yeah, it was amazing seeing Canada beat Sweden to take home gold. And it was a big penalty shootout win, and we did it. All right, top 10 territory now. Number 10 is Bianca Andreescu winning the U.S. Open in 2019. So 2019, this up-and-coming player in the world of tennis, Bianca Andreescu, actually came off a big win at the Canadian Open in 2019, winning the competition when Serena Williams was too injured to continue. So Bianca went on this nice winning streak. She went through, and then in 2019, she would meet Serena in the final. It was a full match. Bianca would take Serena down in straight sets, 2-0, because women only play the best of 3. And then became the first Canadian to win a Grand Slam singles title, which was amazing for Canadian tennis. Of course, you should know that there were a couple of tennis moments that didn't make the cut. Daniel Nestor and Sebastian Leroux winning doubles in 2000 over the Australian duo of Woodbridge and Woodford. And also Milos Raonic getting to the 2016 final against Andy Murray. And of course, there's been some Canadian tennis moments like Leylah Fernandez getting to the finals in 2021 at the US Open, but losing to Raducanu of England, and Victoria Mboko winning the Canadian Open last year in 2025 and making everyone believe again. Number 9 is Montreal winning the Stanley Cup in 1993. You may be thinking, you're out to lunch, Cutter. Why would you pick that? Well, I mean, Canada hasn't had a Stanley Cup winner since 1993. I mean, the list of teams that went to the finals being Canadian are big. 94, Vancouver. 2004, Calgary. 2006, Edmonton. 2007, Ottawa. 2011, Vancouver. 2021, Montreal. Edmonton 24 and Edmonton 25. They all failed. So this was the last time Canada won the Stanley Cup. And ironically, in the Stanley Cup's centennial season. Montreal were decent, but then they fell in the first 2 games to Quebec. So they were down 0-2 to the Nordiques, but then they pulled off 4 straight wins and then took out Buffalo and the Islanders, got to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Kings, and when Gretzky was trying to screw Montreal over, he screwed Toronto over with his hat trick in Game 7 of the conference finals. We almost saw Montreal-Toronto for the Cup. Unfortunately for some, Montreal was just not good. Oh, and did I mention Montreal put up 10 overtime wins in a row to put this off, including 3 overtime wins against the Kings in the Stanley Cup Finals, winning the Stanley Cup Game 5, getting Dennis Savard his cup, and Brian Bellows, catcher, his cup. So that's what happened. Number 8 is Canada's run in the FIFA World Cup, 86, 22, and 26. Of course, this video will come out on Canada Day, and as of this day, Canada is facing Morocco in the round of 16 on the 4th of July. Now, Canada making soccer history was amazing. They weren't really a soccer country. In 1986, when the Americans were still up-and-comers and Mexico qualified for the World Cup by being hosts, Canada just needed to win their little 3-team mini group with Costa Rica and Honduras to win a trip to the World Cup. And they did. Canada ended up winning the World Cup spot, beating Honduras 2-1 on a final day in St. John's, Newfoundland, which confused Honduran fans because they thought the game was in St. John without the apostrophe, but that was in New Brunswick. Nevertheless, Canada went to the 86 World Cup. They got blasted. They didn't score a goal. They gave up 5 goals combined to France, Hungary, and the Soviet Union. What even makes things harder was that they only gave up 1 goal to the French, who were the Euro champions at the time. And then Canada's soccer team went through a blasted resurgence. In the 2010s, basically no one was watching those games. However, they made a spirited comeback for 2022, shocking everyone by winning the CONCACAF North American playoff thing and moving on. They went to Qatar in 2022. They faced Belgium, Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco, ending up losing to those 3 teams. Not always scoring 2 goals, but at least we scored this time. And then in 2026, being one of the co-hosts, Canada got the group of Switzerland, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Qatar. Canada tied Bosnia, beat Qatar handily, and then lost to Switzerland, like I predicted. A win-loss and a tie. Canada took out South Africa just a few days ago to make it to the round of 16. And what's even more crazy, Germany is not in the round of 16. They ended up losing to Ecuador. Ha ha ha. No, sorry, Paraguay. Ha ha. Yeah. Number 7 is Mike Weir winning the Masters in 2003. Now, Mike Weir was a decent golfer and all that. but he just couldn't win the big one, if you will. In 2003, he put on 4 spirited rounds, had to face Len Matisse in the playoff, in a sudden death playoff, and Weir won it and brought the green jacket north of the border, as Jim Nantz said. Mike Weir couldn't believe his luck. Yes, he became the first Canadian to win a green jacket and to win a Masters and to win a major in golf. However, what's even more crazy was that Mike Weir became the first left-hander in 4 decades in any of the majors to win. Only one lefty won a major prior to Mike Weir, and that was Bob Charles in 1963. Was that 1963? Yeah, Bob Charles in 1963 at the British Open. So yeah, Mike Weir did it, and then another famous lefty, Phil Mickelson, took the thing, won 2004 and a few more. So yeah, lefties became the norm. Bubba Watson as well, but yeah, Mike Weir gave lefty golfers a chance. Number 6 is Joe Carter's home run 1993, and then now you're going to be saying, Cutter, you're full of it. Well, you got to remember it's low on this list because yes, the baseball team is Canadian, but the player doing it is not Canadian, and I try and make national pride above all else. So anyway, Joe Carter's home run was amazing and all that. The Blue Jays in 93 were big. Everyone forgets about the 93 Blue Jays. They had to freaking rebuild. Many of their players from the 92 squad left. Like massive examples. Manny Lee left the Blue Jays. They needed a shortstop, and the Blue Jays had Dick Schofield before he got hurt, and they needed to trade for a shortstop, so they got Tony Fernandez back. Ed Sprague took third place over from Kelly Gruber and was sent to the Angels. Kenny Maldonado went to some other team. Can't remember that. Ricky Henderson at the trade deadline was given from Oakland to Toronto, which was amazing. Paul Molitor came in for Dave Winfield, who left from Minnesota. And, Dave Stieb kind of left, went to the White Sox. Jimmy Key left for the Yankees. Tom Hankey left for Texas. Fortunate for the Blue Jays, Dwayne Ward was still there, for one thing. Another thing was that Dave Stewart was picked up by the Blue Jays. And so too, and they brought Hankin and Steinmeier up from the minors. The 93 Blue Jays took out the White Sox in 6 in the ALCS, went to the World Series against the Philadelphia Phillies, the Modern Gas House gang. Split the first 2 games, won Game 3 on a rain-soaked field in which Paul Molitor surprisingly was playing first base and not John Olerud, only because the NL didn't adopt the DH in the World Series at the time. Game 4 was that 15-14 shocker. The Jays were down 14-9 in the 8th and managed to win. And then Game 6 was Joe Carter's home run on a 2-2 slider from Mitch the Bitch Williams. Just over the left field wall, and of course Tom Cheek's immortal call. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a home run bigger in your life. It's just amazing and all that. And of course, the Blue Jays could have won the 2025 World Series, but they failed. Of course, the problem would have been the one Blue Jay thing per the list. Anyway, number 5 is the other quote-unquote Americanization of this. Toronto winning the 2019 NBA championships. So the Raptors were a decent team. 95, expansion team who shocked the Bulls and Michael Jordan. If it wasn't for that loss, or the other 9 losses, the Bulls would have been the first NBA team to finish in single digits in losses in first season. But yeah, the Raptors beat MJ and the Bulls. That was the franchise's best moment until 2001 when we won a playoff series against the Knicks. Almost won Game 7 in Philadelphia, but Carter banked his shot off the backboard too many times. Raptors had gone through a lot of peaks and valleys, and then in 2019, with LeBron now gone to the Lakers, the Raptors can breathe a sigh of relief because LeBron had taken out the Raptors twice, including when the Raptors were the number 1 seed in the NBA East in 2016. So the Raptors in 2019 took out, I believe, Orlando, and then Philadelphia in a Game 7 on home turf in which Kawhi Leonard, who's now a Raptor as of right now, actually hit a shot that bounced off the rim, but it went through the hoop this time. The Raptors catchy, and they went on to go down. Love 2 to Milwaukee in the Eastern Finals, but won 4 straight. And then the Raptors went on to face Golden State, the team that perpetually made it to the finals in the 2010s, if you will. And then the Raptors shocked the Warriors by winning 3 games in Golden State, like in Oakland, to win the title 4-2. And We the North was a national rallying cry. And basically, yeah, the Raptors took the title away from Steph Curry and co. And Kawhi, will he fix the problem with the 26-27 Raptors? Maybe. Number 4 is Canada winning Olympic women's hockey gold in 2002, and for that matter, 2010. Oh no, turf. Well, anyway, Canada was bit in '98. They got to the finals of the '98 Olympic gold medal thing for women's hockey, but lost to the Americans 4-1. So they wanted revenge. And in 2002, in Salt Lake City, they got their revenge. Everyone knew it was going to be Canada and the United States. And so Canada won. They beat the Americans 3-1. It was a tight game. A very whistle-happy American referee calling a lot of calls for Canada consecutively figured that it was just some kind of bias. Trouble was Canada won, and then when Hayley Wickenheiser learned that maybe some of the American players had stomped on a Canadian flag, she says, "I hope they give us that flag. We'll sign it for them." 2010, they ended up winning the gold medal on home turf 3 days before the boys, and it was just amazing. When they win Olympic hockey gold, it's always good. Number 3 is Donovan Bailey, 1996. So Donovan Bailey was this great track star from Jamaica who came to Canada and helped Canada out. Of course, Ben Johnson, if he was clean, he definitely would be on this list, but he isn't. So anyway, in 1996, the Olympic 100 meters gold had some great names like Frankie Fredericks, Linford Christie, and a few other, and Adam Bolden. Unfortunately, that race actually started off badly, as in 1996. Well, as in, there were a couple of false starts by Linford Christie. He held up the event because he refused to acknowledge that he is disqualified. So, that race was hard. And then Donovan Bailey ended up winning the Olympic gold medal. He started out slow, picked up the speed, and won in 9:84, which was a new world record at the time. And it was amazing. It got Canadians bringing pride. He was the world's fastest man. And like Andre DeGrasse keeps trying to be like Bailey. But it was just amazing, all that. What's even more impressive was that the next Saturday, well, that was on Saturday, and then the next Saturday, Donovan Bailey and his 4x100-meter team, you run 100 meters past a baton. They shocked the Americans on their own turf. And Don Whitman of CBC said it perfectly when he says, "I don't care if you're Canadian or not. You got to love Saturday nights in Georgia." And then, yeah, the 4x100-meter gold medal was just amazing. It broke an American winning streak and all that. I think we did that. I think we got the 4x100 meters last time, didn't we? Or something like that. Maybe World Championships. Number 2 is the Golden Goal by Sid the Kid, Vancouver 2010. So 2010 happened. Canada was going to host the Olympics and, of course, host the hockey. And everyone wanted Canada to win badly. Canada took care of a few teams. I can't remember who they were in the group stages, but lost to the Americans. It just meant Canada had to play the Russians. Sorry, had to play Germany in a match to get to the quarterfinals, which Canada did. So Canada would face the Russians and beat the tar out of them. And then in the semis against Slovakia, they were close to losing that game. Well, actually, Pavel Dimitra had a shot go off the post and also was partially saved by Luongo. Dimitra was so close to giving Slovakia the tying goal and went to overtime. Sadly, though, Dimitra would die more than a year later in that locomotive plane crash. But Canada would take on their old foes, the Americans. Canada was up 2-0, choked it in the final minute. However, in overtime, with like 7 minutes into overtime, Drew McGinley had the puck, and then you can hear audibly, "Iggy!" as Crosby got the pass from McGinley, put it over Ryan Miller's shoulder, And Canada won an once in a lifetime Olympic gold medal on home turf, which was amazing. That, and the nation went nuts. One thing about that game is I actually had to work during that Vancouver 2010 game and all that, but thankfully, though, I had my flags. And number one is the Summit Series, 1972. Canada hockey against Soviet hockey. There was nothing like it. So they set up what they called the Summit Series. 4 games in Canada, 4 games in Moscow. Canada in the first 4 games were terrible and all that. 1 win, 2 losses, and a tie on home turf. They played in Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. And unfortunately, they just fell flat everywhere. So Phil Esposito made a speech to the world saying that don't give up on Canada and all that. They lost game 5, but then won game 6 and 7 on winners by Paul Henderson. Game 8 happened. Canada was down 5-3 in the third period, scored to tie it, and then, of course, the legendary Foster Hewitt on the broadcast that Henderson took a wild stop out of the fall. There's a shot right in front of the score. Henderson scores for Canada. And that was amazing. With 34 seconds left, Canada won the game 6-5 and took out the Soviets. I mean, the Canadians were exposed in the 7 Series, and I think they fixed the problems internationally. Of course, Canada basically shut down that day, September 28th, 1972. So that was just amazing. Canadian pride. And still to this day, it's a legendary Canadian moment. And still to this day, Paul Henderson is not in the Hockey Hall of Fame, which is fucked up. That's just how I feel. But yeah, so 25 great Canadian moments. A long time to talk about it, but what the hey. I'm Jeff Diamond, dude.